Goetzi se hopa, hin weka ni me ese wayats, kutitime o suta hapani han. First, I would like to acknowledge the Kanaka Maoli, specifically the people of the Apua'a, Manoa, whose land and community we sit right now. I speak as a visitor in their homelands. Second, thank you, Kyle. I want to take Kyle's examples of symbiotic mechanisms one step further. I come from a community, one of the most beautiful communities in this world, a place called Cochiti. It's a village that sits along the Rio Grande River, the river that pulls all Pueblo people to this earth. Cochiti, because of its tumultuous history, has lessons to share with the world. One of those lessons I'll share with you today. When we look at indigenous systems of agriculture, we are talking about syncretic systems. But before I get to that, I want you to know my people are agriculturalists and have been agriculturalists and been planting corn since time immemorial. The Pueblo story of corn parallels the story of kalo to the Kanaka Maoli. Corn and kalo are more than commodities. They are representations of entire civilizations encapsulated in one word. They are the physical manifestations of a people, a history, a culture, and a direct connection with creation. As Kyle said, in order to envision a future of agriculture, we must learn lessons from our past, and one of those lessons is connection. When we look at hundreds of indigenous agricultural models, we find their foods are the accumulation of direct connections with the land, with each other, and with ancestry. Food is the art, the symbols, and the stories of how a people has a conversation with the earth. It teaches us how to respond to our environment. It teaches us how to teach generation after generation how to have those same conversations with the earth and with each other. Indigenous people have brilliantly taken the most basic of human needs, the need to eat, to nourish ourselves, and have created entire political, socio-economic, cultural, religious, and spiritual institutions around food. There are two important characteristics of indigenous agricultural systems. One of them is what I call syncreticism. They are syncretic systems. Syncretic systems exist when you have two separate systems that combine and result in a transformation. For example, take water. From basic science, we know the chemical equation is H2O. 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen atom. 2 unstable elements in of themselves, but when combined, create a transformation, the lifeblood of the earth. Indigenous agriculture takes nature and man, and over the course of hundreds and thousands of years, transforms this relationship into balanced connections, syncretic systems of agriculture. Syncreticism acknowledges that there's an undefined relationship between two sets of systems that cannot be explained by the separate systems alone. Another important trait of indigenous models of agriculture is they are based on intellectual humility, in that nature and our relationship with nature cannot always be explained or controlled. And you see this when we assign personality traits to natural processes. After all, how much of a person's personality can we control? 2 examples of indigenous models of agriculture. One is the Hawaiian Apua'a. In the Hawaiian perspective, the Ali'i Nui, the high chiefs, and the Aina, the land, are siblings, with the Maka Aina Na, the people, as the third youngest sibling. The three have descended from the mating of the earth and the sky, and it is the duty of the Maka Aina Na to malama the land, to malama the Aina, to care for the land. And in return, the Ali'i Nui and the Aina will malama the Maka Aina Na. Here again, we see the amalgamation of nature and man. The Apua'a, the land divisions that span from Uka to Kai, are intensely managed and connected. So when there's one issue in one part of the system, the entire system is affected. The second example of indigenous agriculture is Pueblo agriculture. In Cochiti, like other Pueblos, we are as much a part of the land as the land is a part of us. The result is a complex governance system that connects secular and religious, man and nature. And we remember this relationship daily when we pull the weeds from our fields, when we plant the seeds with our water, with our prayers and hope, cook the foods that we grow, and ingest the world with each bite we eat. We honor this system when we teach our children about our traditional foods. The same foods that my grandparents ate, their great-grandparents ate, and all generations before them. The role of the Cochiti farmer in this system is no less the bearer of knowledge that connects generation to generation, but also is the protector of that system for all generations of Cochiti people. There are some that believe that we have evolved past the indigenous system of agricultural model. The whole point of the modern food system is to decentralize food's importance in our everyday lives. We can now ensure that our food needs are met in less than 2 minutes or less in any part of our country. How is that working out for us? So I invite you to explore what happens when the connection to food is broken. In 1979, the Army Corps of Engineers built a dam in my community that flooded half of our agricultural farmlands. Upon its completion, it flooded the remainder. Within 10 years, we saw our first cases of diabetes, of heart disease, of obesity, and the deterioration of our native language, Keres, the channel which transmitted our epistemology, ontology, and value system from one generation to the next. So how and what are the lessons that we learn from indigenous agricultural models, these syncretic systems? Aside from placing indigenous lands in indigenous hands, first and foremost, it's learning about these systems. Indigenous people remain some of the most marginalized people of any society and often are the first to be disconnected from their lands for expansion. But when you look at programs that connect indigenous people to their communities, to their lands, you have incredible results. You have incredible community movements, environmental stewardship, and most importantly, a hope that we as a society are going to be okay. Some of these examples are Ma'o Farms in Waianae, Cochiti Youth Experience in Cochiti. Now let's think about our political future. What if we drew redrew political voting districts around watersheds and food sheds instead of populace and real estate. Indigenous models of agriculture had political structures that were always tied to natural resources. Lastly, my grandfather once told me, when we eat the food that comes from the seeds we plant, we take all the prayers of our ancestors and we create a direct connection. I invite you during your next meal to think about whether your next bite of food is just as meaningful. And when we can say yes to that question, a positive agricultural future will be directly tied to each one of us. Thank you.